In 1990, workers digging along a riverbank in central China pulled a skull out of the ground. It was crushed, deformed, almost unrecognizable. Scientists looked at it, labeled it, filed it away, and for 35 years, nobody questioned that label. Then, in September 2025, a team of researchers ran that skull through the most advanced digital reconstruction technology on Earth. And what came back didn't just change the classification of one fossil, it changed the entire story of where you came from, when your species began, and who else was alive at the same time. The textbook version of human evolution? It was built on assumptions, and one crushed skull just blew most of them apart. Here is what the new science actually says. Modern humans split from their closest relatives at least 400,000 years earlier than we thought. The story of human origins may not begin in Africa, and there were at least 3 distinct human species walking this earth at the same time for hundreds of thousands of years, and we only just found out. This is the story of Yunxian 2, the skull that was sitting in the museum, mislabeled for 3.5 decades. The year is 1989. A team of archaeologists is excavating a site called Shuitang Liangzi, a stretch of ancient riverbank in Hubei province, central China. They find a human skull. Then another a year later. The second skull, what scientists would call Yunxian 2, was crushed during the fossilization process, making detailed analysis extremely difficult. It was initially classified as Homo erectus, a more primitive species of human that walked fully upright and lived roughly 1.9 million to 110,000 years ago. Homo erectus. Filed, stored, case closed. For 35 years, that skull sat in the Hubei Provincial Museum. Ancient, primitive, unremarkable. Then in 2025, a team of scientists from the Chinese Academy of Sciences and the UK's Natural History Museum decided to look again. Using high-resolution CT scanning and 3D imaging, they identified cracks, mineral fillings, and intact bone fragments, and built a complete digital reconstruction of the skull for the first time. And what came back inside that reconstruction made the research team stop cold. The skull's features showed a distinctive combination, including some similar to Homo erectus, including a projecting lower face, but others closer to Homo longi and Homo sapiens, including a significantly larger brain capacity. This was not a primitive ancestor. This was something far more complicated, far more recent, and far more familiar. To understand why this matters, you need to know about what scientists privately call the muddle in the middle. It sounds almost funny. It is not. The muddle in the middle refers to the confusing array of human fossils found between 1 million and 300,000 years ago, a 700,000-year window in which the fossil record is so chaotic, so contradictory, that scientists have struggled for decades to make it tell a coherent story. In that window, human skulls appear all over the world, Africa, Europe, Asia, with wildly different features, different brain sizes, different bone structures. Nobody could agree on what species they belonged to. Nobody could agree on the timeline. Nobody could agree where Homo sapiens actually began. The standard answer, the one in your textbook, was that modern humans emerged in Africa roughly 300,000 years ago, that Neanderthals split from our lineage about 500,000 to 700,000 years ago, and that everything before that was primitive, pre-human, irrelevant. Yunxian 2 says that story is wrong. Analysis of the skull compared against more than 100 specimens from Africa and Eurasia suggests that the line leading to modern humans split from the Dragonman and Denisovan branch around 1 million years ago, 400,000 years earlier than the established consensus. 400,000 years. To put that in perspective, 400,000 years ago is roughly when humans first learned to control fire consistently. It is the distance between us and a world that barely knew what a flame was, and scientists had the entire timeline wrong by that much. Now, here is where this story becomes something else entirely. Because Yunxian 2 didn't just redate human evolution, it connected to something even stranger. The reconstructed skull revealed features characteristic of what researchers call the Homo longi clade, a group that includes the enigmatic Dragonman and likely encompasses the mysterious Denisovans. These features include a large cranial capacity of approximately 1,143 cubic centimeters, a long and low frontal skull bone, and distinctively narrow spacing between the eye sockets. Dragonman. In 2021, a skull found at the bottom of a well in northeastern China was classified as an entirely new human species, Homo longi. The media called it Dragonman. And now Yunxian 2, sitting in a museum since 1990, turns out to be an early ancestor of Dragonman, pushing that entire lineage back by hundreds of thousands of years. The latest analysis also suggests other hard-to-classify fossils uncovered in China should be grouped with Homo longi and the Denisovans, including fossils that another research team recently proposed as a newfound species they called Homo juluensis, a name that roughly translates to huge-headed man. Huge-headed man, dragon man, Denisovans. These were not separate isolated species wandering a quiet planet. The Homo Longi clade, containing the Denisovans, lasted for 1 million years, coexisting alongside the ancestors of modern humans for most of that time. For 1 million years, at least 2 distinct human lineages shared this planet. They knew each other, they competed with each other, they interbred with each other. And then, one of those lineages disappeared, and the other one became you. And now, for the question that is making paleoanthropologists deeply uncomfortable. The study raises a broader question. Where did the ancestral populations of Homo sapiens, Neanderthals, and Homo longi actually live? Inside Africa or outside Africa, which is widely regarded as the cradle of humankind? The out-of-Africa hypothesis is one of the most established ideas in science. It states that modern humans evolved in Africa and then spread outward to populate the world. Yunxian 2 does not disprove that, but it does something almost more unsettling. It forces the question. The research team suggests that if Yunxian 2 is correctly placed within the Homo longi lineage as a sister group to modern humans and Neanderthals, then the ancestral population from which all 3 lineages emerged may have existed in Western Asia rather than Africa. Not Africa, Western Asia. As Professor Chris Stringer of the Natural History Museum put it, this changes a lot of thinking, because it suggests that by 1 million years ago, our ancestors had already split into distinct groups, pointing to a much earlier and more complex human evolutionary split than previously believed. This radical new research suggests that there must be earlier members of the Neanderthal, Sapiens, and Longi lineages waiting to be either recognized or discovered. Earlier members still waiting to be discovered. Which means the skull we just found is not the end of this story. It is the beginning of a much longer one. Here's what this all actually means. For over a century, scientists built a picture of human evolution that was clean, linear, comfortable. A single line stretching from ape to primitive human to us. That picture is gone. What replaced it is a tangled web. Multiple species, multiple timelines, multiple continents, overlapping, interbreeding, competing, surviving. Yunxian 2 not only tells us about the Denisovan lineage, but highlights the complex branching paths to the creation of Homo sapiens. You did not emerge from a straight line, you emerged from a collision. Hundreds of thousands of years of different human experiments all running simultaneously until only one was left standing. And the one that survived carried pieces of all the others inside it. We spent decades arguing about where humanity began. The answer, it turns out, is that it began in more places, at more times, and in more ways than anyone was willing to admit. A crushed skull sat in a museum for 35 years, and inside it, waiting, was a story that rewrote 1 million years of our history. How many more skulls are still waiting? The scientists who studied Yunxian 2 said something remarkable at the end of their paper. They said this discovery resolves some questions, but it raises far more than it answers. And when I read that, I thought, that is probably always going to be true about us. Every time we find a piece of who we were, we realize how much more there is to find. Drop your answer in the comments. Do you think modern humans originated in Africa? Or does this skull change your mind? And if this made you question something you were taught as fact, share it. Someone you know needs to have this conversation.